Welcome to Module 1, Sc130. Now this module has two key areas that we're going to look at. First, we're going to look at their physical world and have a look at those things called solids, liquids and gases, the things that we're quite familiar with. So, we understand them, but actually why are they a solid? Why is it a liquid and a gas? And we're going to dive in to have a look at the nature of these things. And key to that is understanding the characteristics of particles. How do they interact? What they do, some are fixed, some flow, some cluster together more so and have higher intermolecular forces, for example. So we're looking at the nature, the particle nature of our physical world. Now solid, liquid and gases, so let's have a look a bit more what we've got. The states of matters or phases of matter is another expression. But here we go. There's more than three. Well, this one here is an interesting one, plasma. Now, plasma is, you might have seen those balls, and it has a core and a lightning coming out, and you touch it, and the energy is attracted to you. Well, that is a plasma ball. Now, that plasma is a charged, excited, gaseous form, which actually can conduct electricity. So it is an interesting one. And down the other end, they found these things called Be condensates, and they are like a supercooled sort of flow gas sort of state. We won't be looking at the condensates much or the plasma much, but interesting, plasma is the stuff of stars. But we'll diving into solid liquids and gases particularly and having a look at their particle nature, as I said. Well, first to understand that is that we have to understand why and how they change. Solid melts to a liquid evaporates into a gas in the air or boils and into a gaseous state. What's going on with the particles then? What are the forces involved? What are the characteristics? What's their energy level? So we're going to be looking at those particles. Now that's a really good core reason to understand that when we dive into our second week was actually looking at separating these particle forms or these mixtures that we have. We have our laboratory experience where we're going to separate, say, salt and water and then dirt, salt and water. How do we do that in other forms? And we'll write those things up. So that's our second week. But in our module 1 first week, the second part is that we're actually going to look into the particles themselves. So we're going to look at the atomic structure because atoms are the foundation of the chemistry building block of our universe that God's given us. So let's have a look at that. So we're going to have a look at the atomic structure, and there is the basic atom. Now, you might have heard of the nucleus, which has protons and neutrons, and whizzing around at the speed of light are electrons. Now, there's more than those, things like neutrinos and quarks, and it almost seems every year they discover new subatomic particles. But we'll be looking at the major ones in there and how they're arranged. And how they join together to form things like carbon dioxide. What are the characteristics of those atoms that makes them form compounds, particles, in this sense a molecular form, that makes them behave the way they do. This area here, a little bit more detailed, we can go into the atoms form. But there's lots of different atoms that we've discovered along the way. And here they are represented in a document called the Periodic Table of Elements. And that lists all the different atoms that are there. And the radioactive ones are through here, uranium and plutonium, see if you can see them there. So there's over 100 of them, and they arrange in a particular way according to how their electrons are arranged. So the second part of the lecture looks at what we call the atomic structure. You see the little looks like electrons are orbiting around a nucleus. Well, that's a simplistic diagram, but it does explain some of the properties. So we'll be looking at the arrangement of atoms themselves around a nucleus. And then as we're looking at atoms joining together, and we'll dive into the video like the carbon dioxide. Why is it C2O? Why isn't it just CO, carbon monoxide? How does that work? Or why is it H2O, not HO? Now, how do atoms join together? What's the formula of a subsequent chemical reaction forming a compound, which is two atoms joining together? So we'll be looking at those things, and over this week and subsequent week we'll be diving a little bit more deeper into those periodic table of elements. Now, one of the outcomes I want you to do on this periodic table, I want you to learn the names and the symbols, H for hydrogen, N for nitrogen for the first 20 atoms. So you'll know them off by heart. Because this is important when you're writing formulas and equations and doing things, that you've got that knowledge in front of mind. So welcome to Module 1, where we're going to look at the states of matter in the physical world and then zoom in on the particles themselves, particularly looking at the structure of atoms and then how atoms join together and to form a compound and what's their formula about. So enjoy, and welcome to your